Today on the newscast, did Iran just open a new front against Israel? Plus, why is the Iranian regime hosting a group of terror leaders in Tehran this week? Is something in the works? Get my take next. Hey folks, Erick Staklebeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. We've been telling you here on the newscast for months about this Iranian-backed ring of fire that surrounds Israel, whether it's Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, Hezbollah, of course, in southern Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen to the far south, and those various Iranian-backed Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. The Iranian regime has succeeded in surrounding the world's one and only Jewish state with what I call a ring of fire on all sides, armed to the teeth with tens of thousands of rockets and missiles and attack drones. As if that wasn't bad enough, it now appears that the Iranian regime is trying to open a new front in its planned multi-front offensive against Israel. The West Bank, we call it here on the newscast Judea and Samaria because that's what the Bible calls it. It is the biblical heartland, yet today it was the scene of some very fierce clashes between the Israel Defense Forces and Iran-backed Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists. Are we seeing a new front? And why, by the way, are leaders of Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas meeting with top Iranian officials in Tehran this week? I'm sure it's all just a coincidence or not. We're going to break it down today. Before I get into it, just a quick reminder to subscribe to the Watchman News channel right here on YouTube and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Folks, we are off to a very volatile start to the week, to say the least. You don't want to miss any of our updates right here on the Watchman Newscast each and every day. Let's get into this. Breaking news today, Monday, June 19th. Fierce clashes between the IDF and Islamic Jihad terrorists, not in Gaza, where last month we saw a major 5-day conflict between Israel and Islamic Jihad, but as I mentioned at the top, this time it is the West Bank, the northern part of the West Bank, or northern Samaria, in the city of Jenin in particular, which sadly has long been a terror hotbed. Well, today, the Israel Defense Forces and Israeli border police entered the city of Jenin to detain 2 wanted Palestinians, presumably on some sort of terror charges. And Israeli soldiers in an armored vehicle struck a roadside bomb that was intentionally planted there. There was an explosion, and then gunfire began raining down on Israeli soldiers and border police, and also a number of explosive devices were hurled at them as well by Palestinian terrorists. Now, in particular, these were Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists. We know this because the Jenin wing of Islamic Jihad claimed responsibility for the gunfire and the explosive attacks in the wake of the battle. But folks, it got very fierce. This was the first time in nearly 2 decades since the first Intifada that Israel conducted airstrikes in the West Bank. An Israeli Apache helicopter fired missiles below in order to evacuate Israeli soldiers and border police, to give them cover essentially, so they could be evacuated. Soldiers and border police who were injured in these major clashes in Jenin. At least 8 soldiers and border police had to be evacuated. In the meantime, reportedly, some 5 Palestinians were killed in these clashes and dozens more wounded. The Iranian regime has long sought to funnel weapons into the West Bank, where Hamas and Islamic Jihad, of course, both have a presence in Judea and Samaria. And Iran would love nothing more to arm them, just as they have done for Islamic Jihad and Hamas in Gaza. Not to mention the rest of the ring of fire that I mentioned at the top, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and the list goes on. And Iran wants nothing more, again, than to expand these multiple fronts that it has built against Israel. And by the way, Israel is preparing, as we've detailed for you here on the newscast, for a future multi-front war. The Israel Defense Forces and Israel's leadership right now know that in the next conflict, You're not going to have a one-on-one showdown, so to speak, between, say, Israel and Hamas or Israel and Hezbollah. All of these terror entities in the ring of fire will throw their hats in the ring. At least that is the concern. But folks, I don't think it's a coincidence that the leader of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Ziad al-Naqalla, is in Iran this week. He's been there for the past several days, meeting with top Iranian leaders. I'm sure it's all just a coincidence that he is there as Islamic Jihad mounts a major attack against Israeli forces in Jenin. I don't think so. I think the fact that he is in Iran, and look, Islamic Jihad was formed, is funded, armed by the Iranian regime. It is an arm of the regime in Gaza in particular, but also in places like Jenin, obviously. And you have to think that the Iranian regime is directing traffic here, so to speak, and collaborating with Islamic Jihad on new attacks in the West Bank and an attempt to open a new front there, which, as I mentioned a minute ago, Israel is very concerned about. Not only is this Islamic Jihad leader there and other members of Islamic Jihad senior leadership, they're there, by the way, celebrating, supposedly, what they call a great Islamic Jihad victory against Israel last month in that 5-day conflict in which Israel eliminated at least 5 top Islamic Jihad commanders in Gaza. Nonetheless, they say this was a great victory for their cause, and the Iranian regime is celebrating them as well. But Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh is also in Iran right now. At the same time, his Islamic Jihad counterparts are there, and he's meeting with top Iranian officials as well. Folks, these kinds of meetings are never good. It's essentially a terror summit taking place right now in Tehran, and what will come out of it? We saw at least a small example with what happened in Jenin, I believe, where the Iranian regime is continuing to nudge and urge these terror proxies to probe and harass and provoke Israel. When I use the word probe, Iran is very interested to see how Israel reacts to these various provocations, whether it was Islamic Jihad firing over 100 rockets last month before Israel responded with overwhelming force and, as I mentioned, taking out several top terror leaders for that group, whether it was back in April where we had rockets launched against Israel from Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. Talk about multi-front. These rockets were launched almost simultaneously over a 24 to 48 hour period. So Iran continues to provoke and to harass and to see what kind of response they will get out of Israel. These can be seen as dry runs for the larger strategic Iranian plan and certainly a coming multi-front war. Folks, it is no accident on the part of the Iranian regime that it has literally surrounded Israel on all sides and now is trying to open a brand new front in Judea and Samaria. These are perilous times, no doubt, but these are also Bible times. These are prophetic times, and you can take heart by knowing that God Almighty is still on the throne. He is still in control. And when it comes to the plots and the schemes of the Iranian regime and its proxies, the book of Psalms says that God quite literally laughs. He sees their plans and they will come to nothing. So be encouraged. Again, God is in control. Amid all the madness unfolding in the Middle East and the world right now, He is still in control. And we'll remind you of that this Wednesday on our Watchman Newscast live stream. We're going live right here on the channel between 4 and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to bring your questions for our Q&A session. We've got a lot to talk about, clearly, and we'll break down the prophetic implications for all of this. Join us Wednesday between 4 and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, we're back here tomorrow with the Watchman Newscast. Until then, thanks so much for joining us. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.